Bruh, what a week. Okay, well, if you guys weren't around this past week, just take a look at the Bitcoin chart and it'll tell you the type of week that we had. It went from we're so back to it's so over to we're so back again. And eventually, maybe it'll be we're so over again. But in reality, if we zoom out, we're in this range right here. It's just kind of ranging. And this is kind of what happened this past weekend. Risk of recession. So that was one of the events. So we had a risk of recession or rumors of recession because Psalm indicator, we talked about it last video. We had forced liquidations from Jump. We have Mt. Gox repayments going out. We have Grayscale unwinding their ETH trust. We have Genesis repayments. We have the dollar yen unwind. Like a bunch of FUD is going on Bitcoin, and we're still holding these levels and trading in this range. To kind of zoom out and put it into perspective, this is actually what happened in 2020. You guys can see here we had somewhat of a range, and then we had the COVID crash in 2020, and then we zoomed up out of this. So we dropped to around 3 or 4K Bitcoin, and we zoomed up to 20K within the next few months, which is something to keep in mind. But anyways, this is going to be crypto vlog number 5. The date is August 9th, 2024. And I just want to summarize how I felt this past weekend. And I kind of want to go ahead and summarize this past week and give you a feel of where we are at. So a day or two after the, fear of recession or risk of recession, Bitcoin absolute nuke candle and ETH having its 40% candle, I literally had a flashback to 2021, 2022 era, which was around the time of the 3AC Luna collapse. If you were not around at that time, it was not fun. Like, it was very stressful. And I had the same exact feeling this past weekend. It was very stressful, and it definitely made me really sick to the stomach. And I had somewhat of those same exact feelings this past weekend. Now, what does that tell me? Well, that actually tells me a good thing, because that was probably one of the best buying opportunities, because that was about the low. The absolute pico bottom was around FTX. Actually, 3AC and Luna was the pico bottom for ETH. That was when ETH dipped out. It was around $800 or $900. Around FTX, it went to as low as like 1,200 or something like that. So the bottom was put in around 3AC and Luna, and I was sick to my stomach. Like that, I think it was a day, 2 days. It was with the UST collapse. It was a horrible feeling, and that's when we learned stable coins are not so stable. And I kind of had just had to sit down, and it was like, all right, I'm trying to yield max everything. I'm trying to get the next 20%, 30%. And in reality, any percentage you earn, multiply that by 0, it's still 0. So even if you're earning 1,000,000% APR and you lose it in a hack, an exploit, or taking on too much risk, if you multiply that by 0 because you lost it all, you earn nothing. There is no yield. So that was kind of one of those things where it's like, hey, look, remember, keep it simple. Back in the day, it was all kinds of complex yield farming strategies. And I wasn't even able to manage my risk because my UST was locked in a liquidity pool. And actually, I could have hedged my risk, and I gave a strategy to do it, to short UST on the exchange. But at that point in time, I was sick. Not sick like that, but I was sick to the stomach, and I was just like in shock. Like, what just happened? At that time, it was like my second or third year in crypto, and I really only experienced up only. Well, I mean, besides the COVID correction, but I wasn't heavily exposed, so I didn't really know what that felt like. I was just like, wow, this is great. I'm buying opportunities. So it's kind of looking at it into perspective, like the dips are for buying. Not all dips. The dips where it's forced selling. And this past weekend, in my opinion, we did have some forced selling. With a mix of Jump, we had all the FUD from the dollar yen unwind with people over levered. You also have people in the Grayscale Trust moving to other ETH ETFs. There's just a lot of forced selling going on. Now, obviously, in hindsight, we'll see what will happen from this. But back in 2021, 2022, I learned 5 really strong lessons. The first is remember the game I was playing. This is a long-term game. Don't get caught up in the emotions and join the forced sellers. You don't want to join those forced sellers. That's just like, it's not buy high, sell low. It's buy low, sell high. And in reality, if you're taking the long-term game, just stick around for a bit. Second is dips are for buying. And no, I'm not talking about these peanut 2% dips like Bitcoin's at 68K. Oh, it's at 67 now. And let me load up the bag. No, a capitulation for selling dip is the one that you buy. Almost, actually, every single time, unless it's a rug, obviously, it rebounds. And that's either from traders just taking a quick trade or the people buying the dip from the forced sellers. Eventually, that sell pressure goes away. So again, buying the forced selling dips are the ones to buy. Just imagine if you bought Bitcoin at 48K earlier this weekend. It's now 60. Nice flip in a few days. Third is keep it simple. I could have protected most of my stack by not trying to yield max and push everything to the limit. Just making sure my idle ETH and stablecoins are put to work. I literally could have saved most of my capital by either storing it in cash, especially in volatility, because stablecoins are not so stable. Remember the USDC DPEG? That was around SVB Bank in 2023. If you're new to crypto, just because a stablecoin says it's stable, it's not stable. If you're buying into crypto or moving into it for the first time, Bitcoin and ETH are your blue chips. Anything else that people say are not yet proven. Solana is starting to work its way up, but I remember last time I labeled a quote-unquote token as a blue chip. That was Luna. Look at Luna today. And I know you're thinking like everything in hindsight and looking at it like, oh, that was a scam. It's garbage. Back in the day, that was considered like one of the top tokens. Like Do Kwon, everyone loved the dude. Everyone was investing in him. I mean, you even had Mike Novogratz of Galaxy Digital, like a public company. He even got a tattoo of the moon or Luna, whatever you want to call it, on his arm after it moved after $100. I mean, looking in hindsight, like I was drinking Kool-Aid, of course. But I go to say all that is like, Bitcoin and ETH are Bitcoin and ETH because they are Bitcoin and ETH. All the other new tokens, yes, Solana has gone through its boom and bust cycle, so that does prove a lot of validity to it, but it still has a lot of hoops to work through. It's not as OG as Bitcoin and ETH. Bitcoin and ETH both have an ETF. Just some things to keep in mind. I just want to throw that out there because I know there are points in time where you will have a lot of conviction on a token, you'll make a lot of money on it, and you will think it's the next Bitcoin or the next ETH. Just remember this video. There's no such thing. There is no next Bitcoin and there is no next ETH. Just keep that into perspective. Fourth is don't use leverage. Stay away from leverage. I don't care how smart you think you are. I don't care how many times you win. Eventually, you're going to roll that money back in and you're going to ride it to zero. You're going to lose it all. How do I know? I learned. I'm just sharing with you from my experience. The fifth is knowing what I held. There is no ETH killer and there is no next Bitcoin. Don't be fooled in thinking anything different. Kind of went over that point a little bit ago, but yeah. So those were just some of the things that I learned from that. Now, I do want to go over a couple more topics and then we'll close it out. So currently right now, there is some weakness in the stock market. Well, as of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we had a really, really strong rally. And that's because of this. Timer of capitulation. This was on a Tuesday. Bank of Japan won't raise rates when market's unstable. Warren Buffett probably sent over a little ring ring. Hey, Japan, you're not going to be raising those rates no more. I don't know. I'm just kind of putting that out there. But yeah, the dollar yen getting strong was causing the unwind of all the leverage. I don't think we're out of the woods, especially in this scenario. For right now, there is a Band-Aid on the market. We'll come back to this video. We'll see how it goes. I mean, sometimes things can get swept under the rug, but eventually when you sweep so many things under that rug, it'll start to become noticeable, and that's where you usually have a collapse. But the US dollar is the prettiest pig in the pen still. So that is one of those things to keep in mind. Like, they all stink, which as they're doing Pernigo Burr, this is actually bullish for Bitcoin and ETH. Now, as for these random super inflationary altcoins that have a super high FDV and a low float with a bunch of emissions coming up. I don't know about those, but just something to keep in mind. But this week or this past weekend, the biggest thing was the recession fears with the SALM indicator or SALM rule being triggered, as well as the 4.3% unemployment rate, which was much higher than expected. So some things to close it out. First is there is still some dust that needs to settle from this. Yeah, sure, Jump basically liquidated most of their ETH. They do still have a stack. It's about $80 million, nothing significant. And if you actually look at Bitcoin dominance, we still have yet to hit 60. I think it's going to be a matter of time. 60 will probably be the top of this. And then once we hit 60 or at least close to it, we'll probably start to see the alts start to run. We've been seeing the meme coins run, but that's kind of like a precursor of what's going to happen to the altcoins. If you look at the liquidation maps, you can see here that a bunch of leverage was absolutely washed. But still, people think, well, actually, the more things change, the more they stay the same. People are like, yeah, let's go and lever up again. It's beyond me, bro. But if you go on the longer term leverage, it actually looks pretty good in the fact that most of it is piled up in shorts. This was actually at like 14 bill the other day. And, well, they got roasted. This was the longs were actually less than 500 bill or 500 million. And of course, these guys pile up pretty quick. Don't use leverage, guys. These market makers are just going to hunt this junk. And if you take a look at the fear and greed, I mean, we're about neutral now, but we did get extremely fearful. It was at 16 at one point, and that was pretty intense. 17. And that was kind of like recession fears, Bitcoin just nuked. Like there was a lot of stormage that happened. So again, I still think a lot of dust that needs to settle. But in reality, if you know what it boils down to, is don't fight the Fed. The Fed said this over in Japan. We're not going to rise rates anymore. The Fed in the US, they're planning on rising interest rates. So short term, it will probably be choppy. But long term, I do think we're going to play out something like this. So we're probably going to chop in this area at least. This is our chart right now. We're probably going to chop, maybe retest. I think once we break the 69, 70K, then that's when we'll start to look for more bullish sentiment. Now, one last thing I do want to close it on is DeFi leverage. You can see here we're actually not as degen as the exchanges. You can see we get pretty degen around $1,200 ETH. Careful when those liquidations come out. We got about 1.4 billion worth. So in summary, lots of fear in the market. Me personally, myself, I was actually doubting myself. I'm a perma bull, if you guys haven't already realized it. Again, lots of recession fears. SALM rule indicator was triggered, and we had a lot of forced selling. Obviously, time will tell. We'll see what will happen if this is a local bottom or if it is the bottom, especially going into the next bull run. And like I said in last video, this is where I think we are at. I think we're at the disbelief stage. You can see here, disbelief is right here. So I genuinely don't think the bull run has started. Even Kobe has said it. People a lot smarter than me. And you can see here that we do have this consolidation, capitulation, and then zoom up. And these are usually the people who sell right before the bull run or the ones that are just like, hey, dude, I'm break even. I'm just going to get out now. And if you take a look at this tweet, this was around 59K. This was actually before a 48K jump. This was like, hey, look, we're actually in this consolidation mode right here. And then we just had that wick. I don't know if 48K is a low. Maybe we'll keep going a little bit lower. But you can see we're kind of creating this formation, I guess you want to call it. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. It really helps out the channel if you guys do enjoy this type of content. And tell me where you guys are watching this video from. If you guys want to join the premium Discord, there's a link in the description below so you guys can check that out. Yeah, I talk about what I'm doing in the markets, the different altcoins, meme coins, you know. Private chapter 18 versus 18. Casting the lot settles disputes and keeps strong opponents apart. Worst case scenario, when in doubt, rock, paper, scissors it out. Peace out, guys.